So here we go then, Nvidia GeForce RTX 3070 Ti, the latest in the Ampere stack and in theory at least, certainly a place for it. I mean, look at this yawning chasm here between RTX 3070 and RTX 3080 performance, and see how AMD's RX 6800 kind of slots in there. Put simply, there's potential here for a 3070 Ti that could make a difference to the market here if it was priced appropriately and if the performance was there. But look, before we go on, the question is, what do we really want from an Nvidia GeForce Ti or Ti product? Well, Nvidia's definition has kind of shifted over the years. A 2080 Ti didn't have much in common with a 2080 at the technological level, and it effectively gave you pretty much all of the gaming power of a Titan. Same thing with the 3060 Ti, actually, a strategically shaved 3070 as opposed to a beefed up 3060. With those examples, Ti meant a significant leap over other cards in the series, and usually a nice skew in terms of price versus performance in favour of the gamer. This time though, that's not really happening. 3070 Ti is similar to 3080 Ti in that it's the same chip beefed up, as opposed to a more potent processor scaled down, so the difference is less pronounced. A quick look at the specifications reveals all. So thing is, RTX 3070 uses an almost fully enabled GA104 processor. 5,888 CUDA cores are available from a maximum of 6,144 baked into the core design of the chip. RTX 3070 Ti is also using GA104, and it does use the max CUDA core allotment available on the silicon. The thing is though, this is a mere 4.3% of extra compute hardware available, and it's also proven that adding CUDA cores does not result in a linear increase in performance, more an iterative improvement. So to eke out more from GA104, Nvidia goes to some extraordinary lengths. The biggest boost comes from the move from GDDR6 memory to G6X, 608 GB per second of bandwidth up against 448 on the 3070. That's a 36% boost, but Nvidia goes further. The boost clock increases by 45 MHz and total graphics power, TGP, increases from 220 to 290 watts, a 32% increase. All of this requires some retooling of the form factor of the card. We're looking at the Founders Edition here, which actually gets a brand new form factor. Stacking up 3070 Ti against the other GA104 cards, it's clearly bigger. Not quite as large as the RTX 3080 though, which uses an entirely different class of hardware. But still, interesting to see a new design roll out for what is at the moment just one product. We're still using the Nvidia custom power input, of course, and that'll likely be replaced by two 8-pin PCI Express power inputs on third-party cards. Plus, the ports arrangement remains identical to the standard Founders Ampere layout, HDMI 2.1 and 3 display ports. So in terms of the look and feel of the card then, absolutely you're getting the hybrid 3070-3080 vibes you'd want from a Ti offering designed to sit between the two. It looks premium, acoustics are no problem under load, and there's the sense that you're getting a product here that genuinely looks the part. But this counts for little if you don't get the performance. That's where things start to look a little more challenging for the Ti. MSRP is an extra $100 over the 3070, or an effective 20% increase to the existing card sticker price. But there's no sugarcoating this, you are not getting a performance uplift in line with the pricing. And while there is a lot more memory bandwidth, what you aren't getting is any more of it. It's still 8 gigs, which is pretty much the only criticism that can be levelled at the existing 3070, which is otherwise nigh on perfect at its price point, I'd say. So we're going to bench here at 4K resolution, and this serves to completely remove the CPU as a potential bottleneck in most scenarios. And as you'll see from general performance, this card is very much 4K capable, just like its nearest stablemates, 3070 and 2080 Ti. I'm not using a resizable bar here for the benches, but we'll cover that in a little bit. So Borderlands 3 here kind of illustrates the key challenges facing this product. Looking at Founders Edition MSRPs, 3070 Ti sits between 3070 and 3080, but the graph lines tell pretty much the entire story at a stroke. The green graph line there is uncomfortably close to the cyan one, where really you'd want it to sit at a midpoint between cyan and orange, RTX 3070 and RTX 3080. To put the averages into perspective, 3070 Ti is about 7% faster than 3070 here, but the 3080 is 28% faster than the new GPU. All of which is to say that for their respective performance levels, the existing RTX 3070 and 3080 really hit the sweet spot and are clearly the preferable buys. RX 6800 from AMD, the comparison there is kind of interesting. Ideally, the Ti would need to match or beat the AMD card, and you know what, in some games it does, but it doesn't in other titles, like this one. Not going to dwell too much on Doom Eternal here, except to say that the performance uplift 3070 versus Ti is the lowest of all of the tests, at just about 4%. And when frame rates are this high, percentage differentials are effectively meaningless to the actual user experience. Again, no killer blow against RX 6800. I was a little taken aback at the lack of scalability with Doom Eternal, but weirdly surprised with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because typically this game seems to deliver proportionally less performance with higher performing parts across the board. But here the RTX 3070 Ti gets a boost of almost 9% in total. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is also kind of interesting and similarly scalable, a 10% improvement moving from 3070 to 3070 Ti and a marginal win over RX 6800. But RTX 3080, that's a whole lot of extra performance, genuinely game-changing stuff for what would be just an extra 100 US bucks in normal times. Remedy's control favours Nvidia hardware generally, so it's perhaps no surprise to see here that the RTX 3070 Ti can outperform RX 6800. Across the bench, it's a 9-point advantage, but the difference is that there's just an 8% lead moving to 3070 Ti from 3070, and not surprisingly the 3080 delivers 26% more performance. So look, we can talk about potential upgrades from previous generations here. Obviously, compared to prior gen parts that resided at similar price points, the 3070 Ti delivers big performance improvements. I mean, you can be looking at a 45–50% boost over the RTX 2070 Super, for example. You can add to that tally substantially if you're comparing against, say, a 1080 Ti, which doesn't have RT hardware acceleration, DLSS or other RTX features. But even if you're considering gen-on-gen upgrades, you can't ignore the superior value offered by the cheaper RTX 3070 or the huge performance uplift from the RTX 3080. Those cards, and indeed 3060 Ti I'd say, occupy the price performance features sweet spot of this generation. To get a more rounded view perhaps, we can move through a few more 4K benches. And here Death Stranding is 10 points to the better over RTX 3070, but 3080 20% better compared to the new Ti. Similar perf here to an RX 6800, and though the AMD card has a small lead, really you would be using DLSS on this one for a much larger advantage and a small boost to image quality over native resolution rendering. Far Cry 5, it's a 9-point lead Ti versus non-Ti, but again 3080 dominates and RX 6800 is still ahead of the new card by a useful margin. Metro Exodus sees 3070 Ti inch ahead of the 6800 by 3 points and is just under 9% ahead of the vanilla 3070. 3080 though, a good 24% to the better. Moving on to RT performance, control at 1440p with full RT features and no smart upscaling, in effect allows for a level playing field between Nvidia and AMD hardware, but the game's preference for GeForce combined with Radeon's RT disadvantages sees the 3070 Ti beat 6800 by 44%. In fact, it's faster than any AMD card currently in existence. Doesn't really alter the surrounding benchmarks though, there's just a 7.5 percentage point lead over 3070 and the 3080 just streaks ahead. Battlefield 5, Ultra Settings, Ultra DXR, 1440p and again no DLSS. Well, 3080's lead over 3070 Ti is more like 20 points this time, while the Ti versus non-Ti lead is just, you guessed it, 7%. Metro Exodus, well, the performance differentials are much the same. All the data from every angle points to 3070 and 3080 as being the preferred products. 3070 Ti pricing by comparison just doesn't quite make sense. Resizable bar next. This is all about allowing the CPU to talk more directly to GPU memory with performance advantages. So think of it as a free frame rate upgrade really, but only if your motherboard and CPU supports it. The Asus Maximus 12 Extreme and Core i9-10900K I have do support it, though maybe it's not an optimal solution. With that in mind, I saw a performance regression in Control when I tested 3080 Ti, and while it's similar here, you are losing frame rate, the drop isn't so bad, like literally 1%. This is pretty consistent across tested resolutions. Death Stranding next, where the picture is a touch rosier with slight performance uplifts at all resolutions, but still in the region of just 3 to 4%. Borderlands 3 offers similar marginal boosts, but again, rather like my 3080 Ti testing, I found that rebar seems to add additional stutter to the benchmark runs. I prefer consistency myself. Assassin's Creed Valhalla does do pretty well with rebar generally. 4% improvement at 4K, 5% at 1440p, and although I'm not plotting it here, 6 points to the better versus rebar off at 1080p. Though again, I do find the notion of running a card like this at Full HD resolution to be less than ideal. So ultimately then, the 3070 Ti would be absolutely fine were it not for the price versus performance ratios offered by the 3070 and 3080. First of all, for the proposed price, you just don't see a frame rate increase in line with the price bump over the 3070, and it's simply nowhere near the same level of experience as that offered by the RTX 3080. The price suggests a midway point in performance between those two cards, and to be honest, that's exactly what the market does need at that price point, but that's not really what's being delivered here. Even at 4K, which typically delivers the biggest GPU versus GPU differentials, you're still getting between 4 to 10% of extra performance. I'd say that there was a golden opportunity here to bump memory to 16 gigabytes to present the 3070 Ti perhaps as more of a future-proofing option, because the performance on tap here just doesn't tally with the price. In terms of the 3070 Ti's hardware makeup, there is the sense that Nvidia has pulled out all of the stops to get absolutely the most out of the GA104 silicon. Big boosts to power draw and memory bandwidth being the major plays here. But ultimately, it seems that the card just doesn't have enough CUDA cores at its disposal to make much of a dent up against the standard 3070. And indeed, similar to RTX 3080 Ti, the 3070 Ti just seems to make the vanilla card look much more appealing. I mean, let's look at things from a different perspective. Let's reverse things for a moment here. The RTX 3070 has a low amount of CUDA cores, has big reductions to memory bandwidth and power consumption, and it still delivers excellent performance within striking distance of 3070 Ti. It's proof positive that while specs are important, hardware balance is arguably more crucial than the raw numbers. Meanwhile, looking at the competitive market, the alternative from AMD is the Radeon RX 6800, the non-XT model. Now, I realise that MSRPs are nonsensical at the moment, but the card has a notional $580 sticker price up against $599 for the RTX 3070 Ti. In games where Nvidia does well, the RTX 3070 Ti can match or even slightly exceed 6800's output. Plus you get a big bump to ray tracing performance and good features like DLSS and the low latency reflex technology. The problem is that there's no real knockout blow in terms of rasterization performance, plus the 6800 also ships with the 16 gigs of memory that I honestly think the 3070 Ti should have had. I don't know, it seems to me that maybe the 3070 Ti is perhaps more like the 3070 Super that should have come out as a replacement model further on down the road at the 3070's $499 price point, as opposed to being an additive product in the here and now. So that's where the 3070 Ti has landed then, not quite the price versus performance anomaly of the 3080 Ti up against the 3080. And to be honest, with just a few more CUDA cores available versus 3070, I'd have preferred to have seen more 3070s on the market. And that's all I've really got to say on this one, so I shall sign off for now. As usual, liking, subscribing, sharing is the order of the day if the video was of value to you. And for subscribed viewers, bell ringing ensures you get instant notifications whenever new DF videos land. The DF Supporter Program. Join us, support the team, get access to a big bunch of extras, talk to the team directly on Discord, help to grow and expand DF Retro. Patreon.com/Digital Foundry, you know it makes sense. And of course, pristine quality video downloads of everything we do. But that's all from me for now. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this one, if indeed you did. And just generally, thanks for watching and supporting Digital Foundry.